You are listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I'm a business owner, a part-time digital nomad, a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and am all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. Hi, welcome to this week's episode. This week, I hope you come away with some ideas around how to get to a way that you do things in uniquely your way that makes you feel your best and that kind of guides you back to feeling like your most you self. I heard this quote years ago, and it's always stuck with me, and it's that you can tell a creature's natural habitat by what brings it back to health. So if you think about it in terms of animals, for example, if you take an animal outside of its natural habitat and you try and have like a fish living on land, it's not going to be very healthy for very long, right? But you put it back into clean water, its natural ecosystem, and it begins to thrive. And the same is true for any kind of animal or mammal or bird or all the other kinds. And you can think about it with plants too, right? Like you take a plant and you take it out of the sunlight, out of fresh air. Maybe you have it in a polluted warehouse in a city somewhere. It's not going to be thriving as well as if you take that plant and you put it into some really beautiful soil, sunlight, rain, and you have it thriving in its natural environment. This is kind of a compass that nature has created to be able to tell a creature's natural habitat by whatever brings it back to health. And the same is true for humans. And I think that that's a beautiful clue nature has given us to help us find our way back to where we can really thrive and feel our healthiest, most alive, most present, most fulfilled. So if there's part of you or an area of your life where you're not feeling that, the good news is you can actually start to use that as guidance for how to get back to the place where you do feel better and where you do feel like you're getting healthier and healthier. And this goes across your actual health, what actually brings you to a healthy, strong, vital body, to your relationships, to where you feel you're healthiest in a career, maybe even where you live in your location, even the kinds of things you like to do or the passions that you have. So I'll touch on each of those, and then I want to share a few examples and questions you can ask yourself to get back to that place if you're feeling a little stumped. So let's look at the example of health, because this is something we can literally see the evidence in our body of what makes us feel healthier or not. And I want you to think about it where there's so much information out there these days. You know, we're all inundated with different nutritional advice. The marketing is so savvy. Everyone has a different opinion on how to get healthy. And you can take all that in if you want to, but I think at the end of the day, you can tell a creature's natural habitat by what brings it back to health. So if you think about it in this health example, what makes you feel like you are sleeping the best? What are the habits or practices that you use that make you feel the most energetic throughout your day? What makes you feel the most strong? What actually builds a body that you love being in? You feel like you can hike up a hill at a moment's notice because you feel energetic and strong and full of vitality. For me, those are the things that I always return to get out of all the information I might hear about what healthy is or healthy isn't. For me, I know the things for my body that I can do that make me sleep the best, that give me the most energy, that make me feel strong and vibrant. And those are the things that for me, as my own creature, I try and return to obtain the greatest health. So what are those things for you? You know, if you are doing something that some influencer says is quote unquote healthy, but you actually feel terrible doing it, it makes you feel weak and lethargic and like you can't sleep well, that may not actually be what for you and your creature, what brings you back to your ultimate health. You can tell a creature's natural habitat by what brings it back to health. So that's the health example. Another one would be in relationships. So I remember this one point in my 20s when I had two kind of different groups of friends. And this one group was a little bit more exciting and fast-paced, and there were all these events and fashion things to do. And there was this other group that felt really comfortable and just like I could show up in sweats and a messy bun and like my glasses, which have like an extremely strong prescription. Like my glasses are those kind of Coke bottle glasses. But to them, it would just be like they would not even notice. I would feel so welcome and so relaxed and so at peace. And so for me, that was one of my first light bulb moments around, wow, there's a difference in how I feel even among groups of people and in relationships. And I started to, from then on, watch how I felt around certain people and relationships, how I felt when I got off the phone with someone, how I felt even just texting or when I told them about something exciting that was happening or something that was hard. And so for you, that may be a lesson you could apply to your life as well, where you can tell your best, healthiest relationships by what brings you back to that place of health and feeling good and feeling secure and feeling strong. I saw someone post the other day and they said, quote, "A relationship that doesn't give you anxiety is the ultimate flex," end quote. And, we can debate the term flex, right? If it's a flex or not, but I just thought, that's a really interesting thing for her to identify in her experience, that this relationship she doesn't have anxiety in, and maybe others she had had before. And so it's, again, just another signal of health and happiness. If you are feeling that peace in your own body, that is a good clue that that's a good habitat for you and your creature, right? Like you being the creature, that brings you back to more health. That could be a really good relationship for you. So you can think about it in the context of relationships. Same for careers, right? Oh my gosh, we've probably all had certain jobs that made us feel tired at the end of the day, where we just hated going, where we woke up and we had dread when we heard our alarm clock in the morning, where we counted the hours down till 5 p.m. And then maybe you've also had the experience of a job where the day goes by faster, where you feel lit up by the conversations that you have, where the work is stimulating, where it's bringing you back to more health and vitality, because for you, that is a more natural habitat and environment that's going to make you thrive and feel full of health and aliveness. So watch for that as well. If you're in a situation where the job is not right for you, start maybe seeing if there's a way you can shift that. Maybe it's learning a new skill. Maybe it's applying for another job. Maybe it's going back to the interests and the places that you used to feel that aliveness and seeing if there's a way to pivot and transition there. You only have one life, right? And unfortunately, no one is coming to fix any situation for you or me or any of us, but you do have the capability to take that action and to take it into your own hands and to slowly, if needed, start making decisions towards a life that does make you feel more healthier and alive and at peace. I even think about it with the example of like the structure of your day. So for me, I've just started to learn as I've gotten older, like that not everything that works for someone else is going to work for me. And that's actually okay. I have to learn myself and get to know myself like I would any other human being. And so I know that there's, for me, the time of day that I'm going to be the most active and energized. For me, that's a morning thing. I know by around afternoon or evening, I'm not going to have the best decision making. Like I've even said this to my husband whenever we're making a bunch of decisions or talking through things like even at dinner or on a walk in the evening. He knows I'll just have identified now as saying like, oh my gosh, let's talk about that choice in the morning because I just know my brain is not going to be the sharpest right now. And so for me, that's been a real learning to working with myself and bringing myself back to my natural habitat and place of health and aliveness is like, this is the structure of my day that works. This is the structure of my day that gives me the most energy. I know a walk first thing in the morning, even if I don't always want to do it, is going to make me feel so much better the rest of the day because I have a clear head, because I feel like my lungs have been oxygenated and my whole body feels like a little bit, looser and stronger and more like full of healthy blood flow, all the things that a walk does for you. And so for you, it may not be a morning walk. You may be the opposite. You may be more of a night person. You may love a really big kick-ass workout first thing in the morning, or you may love an evening workout. But just the permission around like figuring that out for yourself and knowing, like, looking at yourself as if you are any other creature in nature, whether it's an animal, a plant, or anything else, and saying, okay, this woman I know, what brings her back to health? How does she really thrive in her day? So those are a few examples, and now I want to give you a few questions around figuring out what that could be for you. So the first thing is to look at, what are your moods and energy saying to you? Because I really truly believe that even the smallest of moods and shifts has often a sign for us and a message. I don't think that you can write off if you have just been sad every single day. I think that's something to pay attention to. And that's something, if you're waking up and you're just feeling low energy or just like something's off, maybe something is off. And maybe that is your life and your body speaking to you and saying, it's time to look a little closer. Like, I'm trying to get your attention. Here's a sign for you. And so you can look at that. Where can you go when you do feel more energetic, when you do feel happier, when you do feel more fulfilled? What does that look like for you? And in relation to that, a really important question to figure out, if you haven't, is where do you actually feel in flow, and what does that feel like in your body? So what are the experiences that you have, if you can think about what are the times when you have felt at your best, or that flow, that happiness, that aliveness, and what has that felt like in your body? So for me, some of the feelings when I'm like at my best, to illustrate and maybe give you some ideas of your own, I feel a sense of peace, of like inner stillness and knowing, and a little bit of like, I would say, a calm confidence. I feel alignment. I feel, if it's a body sensation, it's almost like this deep breath. It's kind of like this weighted blanket on my shoulders feeling, but not in a negative, heavy way, more just like this calm, like steady, groundedness way, where I feel like I can just feel my body release and decompress versus feel all constricted and tight and like agitated and kind of like overthinking situations. So for you, I'd really get clear on what is that feeling in your own body. And you can use that as a compass for any situation you're in to say, am I feeling this list of these positive sensations and good feelings for my body? Or am I on this other side of the list, which is the more negative, like out of flow, out of alignment feelings for my body? And then it allows you to kind of course correct and try and get to the place where you're feeling better more often than not. Another question you can ask yourself is, where do you feel free? I think that's a big one. Anywhere you feel paralysis or this kind of compressed constriction I was just talking about, for me, that has always been something to look at. Whether it's an organization you're part of, we've talked about careers, whether it's just a situation in your life where you don't feel free. I think there's a difference between it being like a responsibility, because there's definitely been things in careers in my life where I have felt like a tremendous amount of pressure and obligation to do something, but I've felt freeness in doing that as well, because I've been excited to have that level of responsibility or that kind of commitment, or to be going through something that I believed in so much and figuring it out, but I felt very free and fulfilled in doing so. So I do think there's a difference between it just being like, oh, this is easy and this is free, versus like at a deep heart level, I feel free in choosing this. I feel like this is the right decision for me, and or your family. Like, I know this is for the best. I feel like a freeness in my soul around this. So those are some of the questions that I would think through, but ultimately I really think it boils down to thinking through those areas of your life that we talked about early in this episode. If you were looking at yourself like any other creature in nature, any other plant or animal, but you are this creature of yourself, what would your natural habitat be? What would make you feel fulfilled and at peace and alive and full of health and energy and vibrancy? That is the telltale clues that nature's given you around what will bring you back to health and your happiest, most fulfilled and aligned place. Thank you so much for listening in. If you love this episode, there are 2 things that would be so helpful to me and this podcast. One, if you haven't yet, is to leave a review. These take less than a minute, but help get this podcast into the ears of more listeners and women it can uplift. Or if you've already left a review, share this episode on Instagram and tag me at @HiJessicaJohnson so I can personally thank you and reshare. Thank you for being here, and I will see you again next week.